Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Visibility Sessions. I'm Dina Behrman, PR strategist, and today I am joined by Susan Payton, who runs the business of stories and is a storytelling expert. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun to be here.
Yes, very excited to have you here. So Susan is author of international best-selling book, The Business of Stories, Harness the Power of Storytelling to Demonstrate Your Value, Attract Your Ideal Clients, and Get Paid What You're Worth. She also has a podcast of the same name and a simple 7-step framework that has helped hundreds of business owners share stories that do the selling in their business. So tell us more about how you ended up doing what you do now.
Well, in 2015, I was in a place where I think a lot of business owners, particularly coaches, will really resonate with, is that I was trying to get out there. I was trying to be seen. I was trying to be heard. I was trying to cut through the noise. But I was trying to do all the marketing things, right? So, I've got to do SEO and I've got to do webinars and I've got to do, which was completely overwhelming and ended up not doing any of it very well. And none of it was really particularly working very well. And I paid thousands to get an all singing, all dancing website created because I thought that's what I need, a flashy website with a forum and a notice board and all these things, which back then, believe it or not, was thousands of pounds because it was all COVID and and then I even spent money on a marketing agency because I thought I just need more people. I need more leads. I need more people coming in, more people seeing me. And then it'll work. And of course, it didn't. None of those things worked because I didn't have some key foundational pieces in place, right? I didn't really have a deep understanding of who my ideal client was. I didn't really know what my thing was, what my niche was. I didn't really understand the value of what I could help people do. I knew I had lots of experience and strengths, and I'd always worked for myself, and I knew that I could help people. I just wasn't 100% clear how. So all of this stuff I was doing wasn't really working because I didn't even have a message. I didn't have a really clear, compelling core message. All of the things that I now help business owners do. So without those core things in place, all the marketing in the world was never going to work because I just wasn't really connecting with people. I didn't have a message that was, landing with people. I didn't even really understand who I was helping or what I was going to help them do. So I was really floundering around. And being bombarded with all these messages about all of these things that I needed to be doing. And it was really overwhelming. And I nearly gave up. Like I literally remember, and I tell this story a lot, but I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night with a glass of wine and saying to my husband, nothing's working. Like nobody wants me. Nobody's going to work with me. And I went to bed that night thinking, well, I've got two options. I either just close the whole thing down, or I do something completely different because what I'm doing isn't working. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go into the group because I had a group of 1,500 women in business that I'd managed to put together. My business then was called the Business of Mums. And they were in the group, but it was a free group and nobody was buying. They were just in there and everybody was connecting and having a nice time, but it wasn't a business. But I went in the next day and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to be really honest. Like I'm going to let people know who I am, why I'm here, why I've created this group, what's led me here, the journey that I've been on. I'm going to just be really honest and open. And that's what I did. I went into the group and I shared my story. Like we didn't have lives and stuff like that back then. So I actually, wrote my story out. I've always loved storytelling. So I actually really enjoyed, sat down, wrote my story out, put a few pictures in there, made it, nice and easy for people to engage with. And then I sent it out to everybody in the group. And then I did have a moment of panic where I thought, was that a good idea? Like, because I'm not some 7-figure amazing, business owner that's going to tell them all how to grow a 7-figure business. I was just being really honest about where I was at, what I'd done, what I wanted, how I thought I could help people. But I needn't have worried, because literally within minutes I started to get messages from people saying, your story is amazing, it's inspiring, which I had never thought of my story as inspiring. Thank you so much. It's so honest. It's so refreshing to hear people, somebody telling the truth and being so honest and open. And I had messages from people saying, okay, so what is it that you do? And, what is your coaching? And can you help me tell my story? And that one threw me a bit, because I thought, help you tell your story? Like, why would you need someone to help you tell your story? I didn't realize that not everybody finds storytelling as easy as I do, right? Because I'd always done it and loved it. And so that I started to realize that, well, first of all, that response was like everything else I'd tried, everything else I'd thrown money at, didn't work. But going in and being real and honest and sharing my story did work. And I also realized that lots and lots of people in that group needed help with telling their story. And that's where it started. And that's what I have spent the last 10 years doing, not just helping people tell their story, but putting all those foundations in place that I didn't have, right? Ideal client, niche, your value, not as in what is the value to your ideal client of what you help them do, and how to unpack your stories, get all the answers you're looking for, build the foundations of your business through your stories, and share stories that attract the right people, cut through the noise, help you stand out, and do the selling for you. Because actually, when storytelling really works in your business, you'll never have to be salesy again.
I love that story. I think so many people would identify with that. I literally went through something so similar, probably around the same kind of time as well.
Right.
And you have those moments where you're like, I know that I can help people, but for whatever reason, you're not reaching them. And knowing how to connect with people through stories is so powerful, because
100%.
the brain's wired for stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
stories are one of the most powerful things that connect us as humans.
And like you say, not everyone knows how to tell stories. In fact, I think most people I know, when I'm talking to clients, when they're starting to work with me, they'll often say, I have no clue what my story is, or I don't even think I have a story. No, you do. Everyone has a story. Because it's our life journey is often the part of our story. But I think so many people get bogged down by not knowing what their story is, and having someone like you that can direct them on this is how you unpick all those things that become part of your story is so important. Where would you recommend business owners should be sharing their story? Because I think that there's so many ways you can actually use your story once you know what it is. Stories, plural. Where's the best place for business owners to be sharing them? How should they be using their story?
Well, I will answer that, but let me just go back a little bit to what you're saying about people thinking that they don't have a story. I think one of the biggest, things that hold people back, and I hear this all the time, is my story's not that interesting. It's not dramatic. It's nobody's gonna, it's not fit for a Hollywood blockbuster film.
Because we see all these rags to riches stories in the online space, dramatic.
Yes, exactly. I've got to have the life-changing moment that I saw the light and suddenly everything changed. But I always say to people, the thing that the stories that really, really connect with people are the stories that are relatable, right? Like, I can see myself. So I told my story, and what first thing you said, I've got a really similar story. So same thing happened to me, and that's connection, right? That's somebody telling a story and somebody else connecting with it, reflecting on it, thinking, oh yeah, that's like my story, like I get it, you get me, that's connection, and that's what we want to create. If I was telling some dramatic Hollywood blockbuster type story of some life or death thing, that wouldn't be relatable, right? It's unlikely that you would have said, very similar to my story, right? You would have gone, wow, that's a big story, but you wouldn't have felt the connection with it that you felt with my story, and which I know lots and lots of people feel that connection with my story, because I've told it so many times and people always say to me, like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
So it's important to remember that, right? That your story, all your story needs to be is, one, relatable.
Yeah.
Right. So people can relate to it. People get it. People understand it. And people think, I have felt like that. I've been in that place, right? I've, I can see myself in your story. And so the more everyday, the more relatable it is, the more ordinary it is, the more likely people will relate to it, right? So that's the first thing, those big dramatic stories. Are not going to resonate with people in the same way. So it needs to be relatable and it needs to be relevant, right? We need to put a little bit of work in to think, okay, so I want to tell this story, but why am I telling it? What's the intention behind it? How do I make sure it's really relevant for my ideal clients? So there's lots of aspects of the story that I told you that I could have shared, but I share the ones that I know are the most relevant, trying to get my business off the ground, trying to get ideal clients, not really knowing, not having those key foundational pieces in place. I know that's super relevant for the people that I work with, right? So they're the two main things. So it's not even what happened in the story. Like, it's not the series of events. It's not what happened. It's what bit of it is relatable and what bit of it is relevant. So they're the things I would keep in mind for anybody that thinks, oh, my story is not good enough. Right?
Yeah.
Like you said, everybody's had a story. I remember working with a photographer who said, I haven't got a story. I haven't got my ideal client story. I'm just a geek with a camera and I just love taking pictures. And then we started to work together and he started to tell me about the moment he was in the dark room and the first time he ever put a negative up and he watched it come to life in that dark room. And he said it literally brought it makes me emotional. He said it literally brought a tear to my eye, and I knew in that moment, and I was like, that is a powerful story. Who feel something when they hear that story? That shows me how much this means to you, right? You're not just taking pictures for money. This is something that's in your heart. So now I'll answer your question. Where to share stories? Everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Every single thing I do, I approach it with, how can I weave storytelling through this? Like, how would a storyteller approach this? Whatever it is you're doing. Yes, there's social media, of course, and everybody, I think a lot of people assume that's what we're talking about when we say storytelling, like, oh, put a story on Facebook. But everything you do in your business, creating talks, creating masterclasses, creating any digital assets, lead magnets, anything you're putting out there. How can I weave storytelling through this? Even when I'm answering questions, I'm telling stories all the time.
Yeah.
So I think as well, what's important is to move past it's my story. It's that story of how I came to be doing what I'm doing now. Yes, you've got that. You need that story. It's your core story. It's the one that people ask you the minute you go on a podcast.
Yeah.
Or do a live. It's the first story they ask you. So you want to, of course, have that story crafted, and you want to have it crafted in a way that you can tell it in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, depending on where you are and what you're doing. But you have millions of stories, like so many stories, the journey that you've been on, all the things that have happened, all the events, people, decisions, choices, crossroads, everything in your journey is full of stories. But there's also your client stories and, where they were at when they came to you and what that journey together looked like. And, where did they stumble and where did you help them and how did you help them? And then where did they get to and what does their story look like now, right? So there's millions of stories in there. Then there's all the things that are going on around you. Right? It's all the things that are happening every day. I tell stories about MasterChef. I tell stories about, lyrics of a song, like anywhere that I just find some inspiration and I think, oh, that's a great story. I use analogies, I use metaphors. And I use storytelling in everything. Every chapter of my book starts with a story, and then it's got stories weaving through it, bringing all of my points, and teachings to life. Every episode of my podcast starts with a story, and then I weave stories through it. So everything I do, I'm looking at how can I weave stories through it. And people come to me all the time saying, I love your stories. Like, you know, I love, or they'll say something like, you know, I loved that story that you shared about, I don't know, ordering your husband from the universe, or, you know, getting your underwear stuck on a metal chair in an event. It made me laugh so much. And I thought that's the coach for me, because, you know, she's funny and she's honest, and, you know, she doesn't mind talking about the ups and the downs and the things that go well and the things that don't. So everywhere is my short answer.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really good to hear, because I think sometimes as business owners, we are so focused on social media, and like you say, thinking, oh, I need to put a story out on Facebook and then that's it. And there's so much beyond that. And being able to share your stories in talks and trainings that you're doing, and, you know, going to networking meetings and being able to tell a story when you do your little
100%.
elevator pitch. And from the PR side of things as well, I know we were talking just before, and you shared your story in Best magazine recently and said that someone had reached out, even though it wasn't directly about your business, it's still creating that connection point, and then people want to know about your business anyway.
I mean, the article in Best magazine was about the fact that I'm married to a farmer, you know, London girl turned farmer's wife. But somebody read it, messaged me and said, you know, I loved your story. And, you know, I saw that you've got a podcast. I've listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast. I'd love to book a chat with you because I think you could help me.
Amazing.
You know, so yeah, it doesn't always have to be, oh, I need to tell my story and then I need to somehow shoehorn it into, you know, what I do now and how I help people and have a call to action. I mean, yes, do all of those things, but it's looking way beyond that. And really, as long as the stories you're sharing are relevant and relatable, right? People are going to connect with them. It's going to just create that initial connection, spark a little bit of interest. Oh, that's interesting. That's someone who sounds like they would understand me. That's someone I feel some kind of connection to. I'm going to take the next step and look at what they do and how they maybe they could help me.
Yeah. So when people are sharing their stories, are there any mistakes that you see people making, you know, potentially because I think with social media in particular, so many people do vulnerable shares, and, you know, we're told to be authentic, which of course is important, like you say, the relatability piece, but then I think sometimes people maybe struggle with that. What do you see in terms of mistakes that people are making with storytelling?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things in there. I mean, the vulnerability piece, funny enough, episode 15 of my podcast has come out this morning. And that is how to share stories that come with a feeling of shame or failure, or, you know, where people feel really vulnerable sharing. And I would never tell anybody to share a story that they don't want to share, that they're not ready to share. You know, this is not about, you have to put it all out there. You know, it's not therapy, it's not confession, it's none of those things, right? So that's the first thing, is that people don't have to share anything they don't want to do. But there is absolute gold in those stories of overcoming challenges, you know, getting through a difficult time. One of the things that helps us get through difficult times is hearing the stories of other people who've gone on that journey and got through and come out the other side. But imagine if nobody shared those stories, right? Imagine if nobody talked about failure, nobody talked about, you know, and I actually mentioned in the podcast the recent Netflix documentary about Victoria Beckham, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but I watched it, and she's so real and so open, and it was failing. She didn't know what she was doing. Her husband had to bail her out several times, you know, but she was so honest and open about that, which I loved, because it's stories like that you go, oh, okay, it's normal. Like, it's not, this is tough. Running a business is hard.
And you see people in a new light as well. I think lots of people watched that and had a real appreciation of what he's
needs
done and
found
achieved.
respect, and absolutely. So those stories are powerful, really, really powerful. So, but the key is it really goes back to the intention behind sharing the story. Why are you sharing the story? And what is your audience getting from it? What it again goes back to relatable and relevant,
Yeah.
So it's not so much, it's not that you have to share all the detail. It's not that you have to tell everybody everything that happened, talk about people who, other people, you don't have to do any of that. And I get this question such a lot, well, what if my story is, about somebody else, or there's part of it that I don't want to share? Honestly, you'll be surprised how little of the actual detail of the story you have to give for the story to create the connection you want it to connect, that you want it to create. Maybe it's
you don't have to give everything.
No, maybe it's more about the turning point. Maybe it's more about the growth, what you learned from it, the lessons, the insights, the perspective. Maybe what you got from that you bring to your work now. Who you became as a person as you worked through that.
Yeah.
So there's there's so much gold in those stories that it would be a shame not to share that, but you don't have to share it from a place of oversharing, for sure. And also just keep them simple. Keep the story simple. That's probably the feedback I give to clients more than anything else is, that's a lot. There's a lot of stories in there. Let's just pick one and make it really, really simple. So they would be my main tips.
Yeah. And I think that, just thinking about it from a PR perspective as well, if you're sharing your story, and I think sometimes, when you're looking at things that happen sort of chronologically, and it's like, well, then that happened, and then that, and then that, and it is being able to distill that down and share it in a way that actually is simple and easy for people to understand, so that it could be something that you put into a pitch to a journalist or a social media post or whatever, that is easy for people to digest. And like you say, they're getting the main gist of why this is relevant and relatable without going into every single in and out of every part of it.
I actually tell a story in my book and on the podcast about a couple that had a stall in a market in Salisbury, and they had beautiful gifts on the table, and there was a little sign that said, "It only takes a moment to create a moment." And I read the sign, and then I looked up at them. They were a young couple, and they had their son there with them. And I said, "Oh, what's that about?" And she said, "Oh, last year we, as a family, we went through some tough times, personally and professionally." And she said, "But we got through it as a family. We got through it. But when we look back at that time, we realized that it's the little moments that got us through it, not big things. It was the little moments, the hug, the, making you a cup of tea, putting a little note in your bag, just telling each other that we love them, hugging, just the little moments." And she said that we wanted to create something for other people to remind them to, be grateful for those moments, but also to create moments, right? To stop and to give somebody a hug or a bit of love, or, whatever. And it was such a, I mean, they told me that in a minute. And they didn't tell me any of their story. They didn't tell me what the tough times were. They didn't need to. I didn't need to know for that story to really connect with me. And I ended up buying a beautiful thing. I went back, I looked at their website. I've told numerous other people about them. I put it in my book. I talked about it on the podcast. And that's all they did, is they just told me, a bit of this, enough of their story for me to see their why, to see, the story behind what they were doing, and to see that they'd really thought this through, and that they'd created something that, there was a mission behind it. And all of that came through in literally 60 seconds.
I love that, because like you say, it's not having to go into like gory details and things like that. It's like being able to say, we've been through something, and you get the inference of that and come out the other side of it. I love that. I mean, why do you think storytelling is so powerful for business owners? Like, what is the real importance behind focusing on storytelling?
I think going forwards, it's probably almost going to be the only way to stand out, right? In amongst all the AI generated, often quite bland, samey, I read a post from somebody this morning who is the last person I thought would use AI, but I was reading it thinking, you've gone there. You've gone there.
Too many flags sometimes, aren't there?
Yeah,
the structure of the sentences.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
It's not forced. It's not performing. It's like, okay. So I think, more and more, and I'm not against AI. That would be ridiculous. AI is brilliant in lots and lots of ways, and there's lots and lots of ways that you can be using it in your business, in your content, for sure. But taking the time to really think about, unpack, share your stories, real lived experiences, right? Which no AI bot has got, right?
Yeah.
They're not emotional. They haven't been there. They haven't stood in your shoes. They don't know what it was like to be there in that moment and have to make that decision and all those feelings that were coursing through your body. And, so to the businesses and the business owners who are spending time honing that skill and really learning how to unpack their stories. And like you said, I've got a very simple 7-step framework that help people to unpack those stories and share them. They are more and more and more, they are the ones that people are going to connect with, because people want real, they want authentic, they want genuine, they want people to be open and honest and share in a way that they feel something, they feel connected to it. So I do think it's going to be, and I also, the other thing about storytelling is we are all natural storytellers, right? Even though you don't think you are, and you don't know how to do it in a post, in a business context, but you are a natural storyteller. You do it all day long. Which makes it the best marketing strategy in the world, right? And it's the one that all leaders and brands and agencies and copywriters and marketing specialists, they all know storytelling is the skill that you've absolutely got to master. Where was I going with that? Because we're already naturally tuned in, we're already programmed. It's in our DNA to tune into stories. So not only are you taking something that we're already, humans, your ideal clients are already programmed to tune into, but you're also, it's the only way to really differentiate yourself, because no one else has got your story, right? Your story is unique. And the way that you tell your story can be completely unique. Like even people come into my group program and I always say to them, there's so much in here to help you. But the key thing is that you find your stories, you tell them in your way, in your voice. This is not about some cookie cutter template, that you just fill in the gaps. These are your stories to share. And the more you share them in your way, in your voice, the more you get across who you are, the more you will attract the people who are a really good fit for you. Because the way you speak, the way you talk about the stories you choose to share, how you choose them, the people those connect with are likely to be a really good fit for you.
Yeah, 100%. I liked what you said about using storytelling to stand out amongst AI generated content. I think that's so important in this day and age. And I know that from a PR perspective, I have started getting media requests from journalists where they say no AI content. Like they want the real stories. They want people sharing their own journeys and experiences and that kind of side of things. They don't want, like, AI is brilliant and absolutely use it for like research and use it to help if you need help with writing and all of those things. But they want the real human, to be sharing.
I remember seeing an interview recently. I can't think the name of the actress that was being interviewed, but they said to her, are you not worried that AI will replace your jobs? And she said, absolutely not, because I think people will lean more and more into authenticity. What is real? What is genuine, And also I saw something the other day saying that people are using AI to comment on posts. And
Yes,
I thought, are
I've
we
seen
getting
that.
to a situation where AI are writing the posts, AI are commenting on the
Yes.
posts? Like, where is this going?
Yeah.
We're going to have AI bots talking to each other on social media. So that the real people with real human stories will stand out head and shoulders above the rest.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, that connection part is so important. And the brands, the big brands, advertising agencies, when you always say, like, when you see those Christmas adverts, and those advertising agencies have plowed millions of pounds into telling a story. That's what it is, because they know that people buy from stories, because it creates that emotion and the emotional buying decision. And people resonate with that, and they are activated by these stories.
There's so many examples in life as well of just, I mean, one of Princess Diana's dresses sold for $500,000, right? They weren't buying the material. They weren't buying the design. They'll probably never wear the dress, right? It's the story. It's just the story. It made that dress so valuable. And there's so many examples of where stories have been the thing, and stories can be the reason that people choose you. They 100% they can be. You need to give people a compelling reason to choose you from all the other people out there doing what you do. Even if you think that what you do is unique, there are other people who solve the problem that you solve, right? So people have to have a reason to choose you, and absolutely 100% your stories can be that reason, which is why I always say to my clients, people inside Storytelling Mastery, is this isn't another strategy to do on top of everything else you do. This is the strategy. Everything I do is about storytelling.
Yeah, I love that. So if someone's watching this and thinking, I'm not sure if I have a story, or I don't know what my story is, what advice would you give them to get started with using storytelling in their business?
Well, you could download my book for free from my website, thebusinessofstories.com, and you can go through that, because there is a very simple framework in there that will really help you. And you can start to think about, what is that golden thread that connects your story to your ideal client story? It won't be that you've got the same story, because even if it's similar, it's different, because everybody's experience, life journey, everything is different. But there'll be some golden threads that connect it. There'll be something that's relatable. We already found right at the beginning of this episode, right, what connected our stories. So look for that and focus on that. And then, you can use a very simple structure to share the story. Like, what did I want? Where was I trying to get to? What problem was I trying to solve? What was in the way? What was stopping me? What was stopping me from having what I wanted? What steps did I take? What action did I take? What did I do? Where did I go? And then what happened? What happened as a result of me taking those steps? And what was the transformation? What changed? What was I able to do that I wasn't able to do before? What did I have that I didn't have before? Who did I become? Right? Because most of the journeys that we go on are not even about where we got to. It's about who we became during that journey to get there. So yeah, but you can download my book, or if you're not, there is an audio version, but if you prefer podcasts, the first 6-7 episodes of my podcast, I go through each step of the process. So that's another way that people can consume.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For sharing this with us today. I think it's such a fascinating topic, and I think that it's so useful for every business owner to understand more about storytelling. So where is the best place for people to connect with you?
Well, here on LinkedIn, for sure. You can come to my website, thebusinessofstories.com. There's all sorts of things you can download on there. Or somebody can, if you want to email me, Susan@thebusinessofstories.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you for
enjoyed
inviting me.
chatting. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.